Freddie Mercury, the legendary frontman of Queen, was one of the most magnetic, dazzling, and iconic performers in the history of rock music. On stage, he looked untouchable. With his commanding voice, flamboyant outfits, and larger-than-life persona, he could make an entire stadium feel as if they were part of his private world. Yet behind the glittering facade of fame and the thunder of applause, Freddie Mercury carried wounds that he rarely exposed to the public. Beneath the showmanship and the crown of rock royalty was a man grappling with the loneliness of being misunderstood, the turmoil of toxic relationships, and the heartbreak of unfulfilled desires. In candid interviews and through the recollections of those closest to him, Mercury's story reveals not just a star who conquered the world, but also a deeply human soul searching for love, stability, and acceptance. This is the story of Freddie Mercury's desperate loneliness, the toxic lovers who haunted his private life, and the heartbreak that never truly left him. Freddie Mercury was born Farrokh Bulsara in Zanzibar in 1946. As a child, he was shy, reserved, and often felt like an outsider. Moving from Zanzibar to India and later to England, he struggled with identity, belonging, and cultural displacement. These insecurities shaped a lifelong yearning for connection, yet also left him wary of exposing too much of himself. By the time Queen rose to international fame in the 1970s, Freddie had transformed himself into a fearless stage god. To millions of fans, he was immortal, radiant, untouchable, but privately, he admitted to friends that he often returned from stadiums filled with screaming admirers to a silent, empty home. The loneliness gnawed at him. "I'm very lonely," Freddie once confessed in an interview, his words betraying the very opposite of the exuberant character fans knew. You can be surrounded by people and still be the loneliest person in the room. That paradox, adored by millions yet longing for genuine intimacy, was at the core of his private heartbreak. Freddie Mercury's relationships were as complex as the man himself. He wrestled with his sexuality during an era when being openly gay was still met with stigma, judgment, and even danger. For much of his life, he navigated this terrain in secrecy, carefully balancing public appearances with his private desires. His first great love was Mary Austin, a woman he met in the early days of Queen. Their relationship began when neither of them had much, and Freddie was still finding his place in the world. Mary became his confidant, his anchor, and the one person who truly understood him beyond the spotlight. Although they eventually parted as romantic partners when Freddie acknowledged his attraction to men, he never stopped referring to her as the love of my life. He left the majority of his estate to her, saying once, "All my lovers ask me why they couldn't replace Mary, but it's simply impossible. Mary is my only friend, and I don't want anybody else. To me, she was my common-law wife. To me, it was a marriage." Yet even with Mary's unwavering loyalty, Freddie longed for a partner who could match his intensity, passion, and vulnerability. And in that search, he often fell into relationships that left him feeling betrayed, used, or deeply wounded. As fame enveloped him, Freddie Mercury attracted lovers who were drawn as much to his fame and fortune as to his heart. Some of these relationships left scars. One of the most controversial figures in his life was Paul Prenter, his former manager and lover. At first, Prenter seemed to offer Freddie companionship and support, but their relationship spiraled into toxicity. Prenter allegedly encouraged Freddie's indulgent lifestyle of parties, drugs, and fleeting encounters, isolating him from his closest friends and bandmates. Their breakup was messy and devastating. After Freddie dismissed him, Prenter betrayed him by selling intimate details of his private life to the press, including his sexuality and struggles with AIDS. For a man as private as Freddie, this was a profound heartbreak, not just of love, but of trust. Freddie's loneliness only deepened. In his pursuit of affection, he encountered lovers who either couldn't give him the stability he longed for or who exploited his vulnerability. For someone who seemed larger than life on stage, his personal life often felt like an emotional battlefield. To the outside world, Freddie Mercury looked like a man who had it all. adoring fans, wealth, success, and endless parties. Yet his flamboyance often masked a gnawing emptiness. In interviews, Freddie hinted at this duality. "You can have everything in the world and still be the loneliest man," he admitted. His lyrics, too, often carry subtle confessions of his internal battles. Songs like "Love of My Life," "Somebody to Love," and "Save Me" weren't just hits, they were cries for intimacy, trust, and belonging. Even his public persona, theatrical, confident, and extravagant, was in many ways a carefully constructed mask. Behind closed doors, those who knew him described a man who was sensitive, self-critical, and often plagued by fears of being unloved. One of the greatest sources of Freddie's loneliness was his inability to live fully openly in the way he might have wanted. The 1970s and 80s were not forgiving decades for queer men in the public eye, particularly in rock music. While David Bowie and Elton John played with androgyny and sexuality, Freddie remained more guarded, refusing to openly define himself. Privately, he longed for freedom. Publicly, he played coy, leaving his true self obscured. This dual existence weighed heavily on him, contributing to his sense of isolation. Even his bandmates admitted they never truly knew the full extent of his private life. Brian May once said, "Freddie kept a lot of things hidden. He lived a lot of his life alone." That secrecy, born of fear and necessity, carved deep cracks in his heart. Yet amid the heartbreak, Freddie did find moments of true love. In the mid-1980s, he met Jim Hutton, an Irish hairdresser who became his partner until Freddie's death. Their relationship was not without its challenges, but Jim provided the stability and devotion Freddie had long craved. Unlike others who were dazzled by his fame, Jim loved Freddie as a man, not as a rock star. Freddie cherished this. "I finally found someone I can call my husband," he said of Jim. Though Freddie's illness cut their time short, Hutton remained by his side until the end, offering the unconditional love Mercury had spent a lifetime seeking. By the late 1980s, Freddie Mercury's health was declining as he battled AIDS. The disease not only ravaged his body, but deepened his isolation. He withdrew from public life, choosing to keep his illness secret until he was ready to reveal it. During these years, the loneliness he had spoken about for decades became sharper. Yet he also showed immense courage, continuing to record music with Queen, pouring every ounce of his strength into songs like "These Are the Days of Our Lives" and "The Show Must Go On." In those final lyrics, his pain and resilience intertwined. He seemed to accept the heartbreak, the loneliness, and the love he had known, distilling them into timeless music that continues to resonate. Freddie Mercury died on November 24, 1991, at the age of 45. His death was mourned around the world, but few knew the depth of the loneliness he carried to the grave. And yet, in a paradox that defined his life, his legacy is one of connection. His music continues to bring people together, to give voice to the misfits, the outsiders, the lonely hearts searching for love. Though his personal life was scarred by toxic lovers and private heartbreak, Freddie Mercury left behind a message that endures, that vulnerability can coexist with strength, and that even in loneliness, one can create beauty that touches the world. Freddie Mercury's story is not just one of fame and music. It is also a story of a man desperate for love, caught in the contradictions of loneliness and adoration, betrayed by those he trusted, yet still capable of giving his heart completely. His candid admissions about his loneliness, his toxic relationships, and his heartbreak pull back the curtain on the myth of rock stardom. Behind the crown, behind the sequins, was a man who wanted what we all want: to be loved for who we are. In the end, Freddie Mercury revealed his truth not only in words, but in every note he sang. And perhaps that is why his voice still feels alive today, because it carries within it both the triumph and the heartbreak of a soul that refused to stop searching for love.